Welcome back to Batavia Spotlight. I'm joined now by Roger Breisch, who is a volunteer with SPSAmerica, which is the Suicide Prevention Services Hotline. So thank you very much for joining us, Roger.
It's a joy to be here. Thank you for asking.
Tell us about what SPSAmerica is and does and who you serve.
SPSAmerica is one of actually very few organizations across the country that specifically focus on suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention.
Okay.
And we do a number of things. One of the primary things that we do is run the hotline, where I volunteer. We have lots of volunteers, as you can imagine. We answer two different hotlines. We have a local line, which is 630-482-9696, but we're also part of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We answer that line as well, in conjunction with call centers all across the country. And most people know that number is 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So we answer both of those.
My goodness. Now, this is a 24/7 service that is out there for people?
The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 24/7, 365. We're always looking for volunteers in our call center, so our local number is answered when we have volunteers, which is most of the time, but not always. But the 1-800-273-8255 is national and 24/7.
Now, I would expect that people that are answering these phones, you must have gone through extensive training to help you serve the people that are in need of your services.
It's 80 hours of training, about half of it in classroom, the other half actually on the hotline. The first half of that second half, because I'm a trainer now, I've been there for 16 years. First half, the new volunteer will listen to me answer calls, and then we will debrief after those, what worked, what didn't, what was the volunteer comfortable with or uncomfortable with, talk through those things. And then after about 4 weeks, and each shift is 4 hours, so 4-hour shifts, we'll reverse roles. The volunteer will begin to take calls, and I'll listen in. And I'm there to help if they get themselves into trouble, but then when they're done with the call, we'll debrief that, what worked, what didn't, what made it volunteer comfortable or uncomfortable, and then we go on to the next call.
Do the volunteers on the hotline ever get into a situation that it's over your head, that something is going to transpire?
It happens occasionally, but not too often. There have been a couple of times with a new volunteer. One poor volunteer, the very first call that she took when we reversed roles was a person who was actively suicidal, and she was overwhelmed by it, and I took over that call. But generally that doesn't happen very often. We've trained them pretty well after they've listened to us for quite a while.
So when you have somebody on the phone and somebody's called in, they're obviously seeking help, they're seeking support. How do you do that? I mean, how do you get somebody who is clearly at a very vulnerable point in life and get them through that vulnerability and hopefully to a position of greater stability or greater comfort?
With new volunteers, I always say, just remember, in the end, it's just a conversation between two human beings. And just be curious. Just be curious about them and their life and what's going on, and validate and listen. Deep listening. That's what it's really all about. Now, we do use generally a methodology called ASSIST, Advanced Suicide Intervention Skills Training. But basically what that is, if you're calling me, I spend as much time as I need to build a relationship with you. Tell me what's going on, what's making life so difficult. And then we validate that. We never say to people, well, they shouldn't be feeling that way, or it's the way they feel. So we learn as much as we can, and then often, especially for somebody who is actively suicidal, and that's a small percentage of our calls. Most people who call are just looking for some relief from an emotional stress or something like that. But somebody who's actively suicidal, we look for something in the conversation about why they might want to live. Just as an example, many years ago I took a call from a young man who was actively thinking about suicide, and we got into that conversation and said, so why would you want to go on? And he said, I have two of the most beautiful daughters.
Oh.
In which case, in that moment, in my mind, the call was over.
Yeah.
Because I knew
Yeah.
the direction forward and how we were going to get this man safe to the next moment. And that's our role on the hotline. We don't cure people. We don't fix people. We help people get over, you said it so well earlier, over that emotional hump. We just get them to the next day, to the next moment. Because as you know, life changes.
Oh, yes.
And what might be horrible today, tomorrow could be completely different. And as we say, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So that's what we work on.
And what I didn't have an appreciation for until you were talking about this is that it's not just for people who are in that active suicidal state. It's for people who realize that they're in an emotional, vulnerable position. And so before you're actively thinking suicide, call. It's called a suicide prevention hotline, but call early. It says right.
Absolutely. The vast majority of our calls are exactly that. It's just, I'm really struggling right now. I just need someone to talk to. I need someone who will listen to me. Too often in our society, people have nobody who will listen to them. All they want to do is try to fix. And we don't do that on the hotline. I mean, we're not going to fix you. We're going to try to help understand and help you understand how you can get to that next moment.
Are there any patterns that you've seen over the time you've been doing the hotline? Any changes in the profiles of the people that call, or is it pretty much always the same?
You know, I'm only there 4 hours a week. That's our typical volunteer requirement. So it's difficult to say. I have been there 16 years. I estimate I've taken 10,000 phone calls in that period of time. But I can't say that I see a real trend one way or the other. Now, the statistics show that there have been a trend over 20 years. I mean, suicide is up. Suicide is up across almost all demographics. It's certainly up amongst our young people. Between 15 and 24, suicide is often considered the second leading cause of death. Accidents are first, and often suicide, depending on how you count, is the second leading cause of death for our young people. And that's on the rise.
So if people are in a position that they need to have somebody, like you said, listen to them and help them, how do people find you? You mentioned the numbers earlier, but can you mention the numbers again that they can call?
Absolutely. Let me give several. The two hotline numbers, our local number is 630-406, or 630-482-9696. Our administrative line is almost the same. If you want to just call SPS, the administrative line is 630-482-9699. But the National Lifeline is 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for telling us about the Suicide Prevention Hotline. And I hope that people realize that this is a service that's out there, to please use it. To please use it to get through some of those difficult times.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
That's why we're there.
Thank you.